In this episode of Ask the Experts, my friend Kathi, who just published a brand new book on using Microsoft in education, is going to come on and share some of her stories she's learned from around the world on how teachers and students are becoming change makers in their classrooms, not in the future, but today, using some of Microsoft's tools. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, I am joined by Kathi. Kathi and I don't even know the first time we ever ran into each other. It might have been when I was visiting your school. It might have been at a Microsoft like one-to-many event, but I think we became quick friends. And I am super thankful to have you on this call because now you are a brand new author with a brand new book, and no one can get this book yet because it's so fresh. Like you can go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble and like pre-order the thing, but you don't see anyone on the street corner running around with them yet. So, Kathi, this is like 2020. People have like podcasts and videos. What was the inspiration for like compiling a book? Books seem big, long, and difficult.
Well, first of all, let me just say I'm still a fan of a good old-fashioned, hold it in your hands, real, actual paper book. So I think there are a lot of people still in that space. You know what? A friend of mine came to me and said, there's so many books written about that other platform that starts with a G. There's tons of them. Google for Littles and Google Apps and Google, they're just tons, and they've been done by all different people. And there weren't really books in the space for Microsoft education and all the products that are there and the people who are doing things with them. And so this friend said, hey, would you ever think about doing something like that? And I said, I have never thought about writing a book before. But yeah, I guess I would entertain that. And this friend said the same thing to Becky Keene. And she had the same reaction. She said, I've never thought of writing a book, but yeah, I mean, we're both Microsoft fangirls. So we thought, yeah, we could do this. Well, anyway, we all got together at ISTE last year in Philadelphia. And we happened to be at an event, and we kind of pulled ourselves out into the hallway and had a little chat, and hey, let's do this. Let's be the first people to really put a book out there about educators, for educators, about Microsoft products that are being used in education in really cool and innovative ways. And that's where the idea was born at ISTE just about a year ago.
I mean, to many people, probably some of our partners tuning in, when they hear Microsoft in education, it's probably Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, right? That's the office of the past, I guess, right? What are some of the other solutions that you dig into?
Well, I'm so glad you asked this question because Becky and I, we decided from the very beginning we didn't want to make a how-to book, right? There are manuals, there are websites, people can go get that anywhere, and that's going to change so often that would be counterproductive to do a how-to guide. Rather, we wanted to amplify the amazing things that are happening with Microsoft products with awesome people that we're connected to around the world. So the very first time we kind of went away and came back together and said, hey, I had an idea, and we both had the same idea. We wanted to build the book around the letter C. So there's a pretty popular, well-known education framework called, the 21st Century Framework for Education, and they have 4 C's. And this has been around for years, and educators have been using this as sort of a framework. So it was communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. And those were the original 4. Now, Becky and I talked about how there's been some debate, and many people over the years have added a 5th C, and so they've added computational thinking. That maybe that's a little different than critical thinking, and that's a debate, but we believed it was so we kept them together but separated them. And then as we talked about this, I said, Becky, you know what? I only know you, and Becky only knows me because we're Microsoft fangirls, right? Because we've gotten active in the community. And we've met all the people in our book because of community and because of things like the Microsoft Education Center and the events that we go to and just the online community. So our first C had to be community because that's where it all starts, and everybody's welcome into this community. And it's just, this is how you meet each other and you grow and you learn and you share. And then the last C, we added one at the end. And I think you'll agree with me if you follow anybody in education who's doing anything. So many educators around the world are now doing such tremendous and powerful and creative and innovative things with Microsoft products and tools and apps. And I'll talk about that in a second. But that they and their students are becoming change makers. And we see this more and more often, through things like Skype in the classroom and getting connected with remote places and building empathy and doing something and caring about it and creating products and coding things that were never coded before. Like all of this is happening. So our final C was change makers. So we called our book Sail the Seven Seas with Microsoft Education. And it's a tribute and a testament to educators around the world who are using these products.
I mean, it's amazing that we've gone just from when I graduated school, where our class was spent copying an overhead projector into our notes, to change makers, where you have citizen scientists, citizen journalists, citizen activists, right? All of these activities that students can do that really just break down the classroom walls, and they're not necessarily exercises or a worksheet. It's actually doing something that's going to impact adults in the world. Don't grow up to change the world, start changing the world today. So that's fantastic. What are some of the stories that I can read about in this?
I think you're going to be so excited. So in the beginning of the book, for anybody who's coming in who's a novice, first of all, we did do a section in the introduction that's blurbs for each product that we sort of reference at some point in somebody's story. So in case you're reading a story and somebody who has used Sway or Microsoft MakeCode or Minecraft Education or some of these that are not the apps that we all knew and grew up with, there are blurbs in the beginning where you can go read the basics, Microsoft Whiteboard, all of those. But then we intentionally interviewed people from all walks of life, from 6 continents. There are over 40 educator stories in this book that fit into those categories of the different C's. And we have men, we have women, we have special ed teachers, we have regular ed teachers, we have primary teachers, we have secondary ed, and we have higher ed teachers. We have administrator stories in this book. We have somebody who was teaching nursing students in this book. We have somebody who's teaching profoundly disabled children using Microsoft tools and products. And so it's got something for everyone. And there are just stories of innovation and of best practice and of teachers who are doing great things. So anybody who picks up this book can read, and we made a point of doing this. So everybody that we interviewed, we said, we want to put this in the book. We want you to share it with us, but we want to share it to the world in a way that people feel like this is replicable. We want everybody who reads these stories to go, I could do that too. And they won't do every idea in this book. We know that. But definitely, after reading this book, everybody will have some sort of a call to action, something new that they want to try to do that they hadn't before. I'll give you a story that spoke to me because I interviewed him. There's a fella in Wales named Lanny Watkins, and he teaches at a public school in Wales. And he wanted his students from his community to see and know the rest of the world. And so he thought of Skype. He's an MIE and an MIE expert, and he wanted his students to see and know the world through Skype. But the teachers didn't know it, and teaching them was going to be more of a project than it needed to be. So Lanny decided to have something called Skype Club. Just what a great idea. And he opened it up during the school day. So it was like during lunch periods or, whatever. So kids would basically come to his room during lunch period, and he would pre-organize Skype with an expert. And he just picked friends of his from around the world. Some of them were experts on certain things. Some of them were guest speakers. But kids would come to his classroom and just every day or a couple times a week start connecting with people around the world just through a Skype club. Well, guess who else started coming? Teachers. Because they heard about this and they got excited. So he didn't have to have an in-service or a workshop or anything to teach teachers. Teachers came because they were interested, because their students were interested. And now Skype Club is a regular thing at his school. The administrators started coming to it. And just, isn't that just the greatest idea? And his kids are seeing the world, his students are seeing the world. The teachers are now using Skype to introduce their kids to things that tie to their curriculum. And it just came out of an idea.
That's That's awesome. And I'm thinking about who needs to read this, right? Obviously, the teacher is going to read this. I'm going to read it because I love hearing things as stories because it makes it very real, right? It's not how to, it's not prescriptive. It's just here's what a teacher came up with this great idea, did it, and it went viral in their school. Maybe you should try it out, right? And so obviously schools are going to read this. I think for our partners that are selling into Microsoft or selling to schools with Microsoft, they need to know these stories too, right? Because it's so not about the device anymore. It's not about the program. It's not about the application. Those are all the how. But it sounds like your book is about the why. Why are you going to use this? Why does it make sense?
Exactly. And you know what? You just said it's not about the device. And it's not, and it shouldn't be. Sometimes it is. Some of the educators that we talk to are are in remote areas of the world where maybe they're teaching off a device with their kids, or off a cell phone, and that's how they're staying connected with the world, and they're telling their students through that. So sometimes it even is about the device. And it makes me think of another story we mentioned briefly in our book, but it's so profound. There's a fellow that we know named Koen Timmers, and he's from Belgium, and he's a change maker. He learned about a village, to simplify things. He learned about a village that's in Africa, and it's called Kakuma, and it's a refugee village. And I don't mean it's a small refugee village. It's a huge one, and it's not one where you kind of come and you're a refugee and then you get out of there. People are there for a long time. And he was so touched by this place, and he inquired about education and what's happening with that, with all the children that are living in these tents in this refugee camp, and how are they getting education. And the truth was, they just weren't, for a couple of reasons. No devices, right? No devices, no real classroom set up. I mean, they're refugees, and where were the teachers? There was nobody trained to teach these children. And he became so inspired and felt driven to create a scenario by which they could do this. So he worked with I don't even know the technical ends of things, but he worked with people to be able to get Skype in there on a device. So there's some sort of a solar kit in a suitcase that he rigged, and they're able to get Wi-Fi through this into this one computer projector setup. And then he took it bigger. He went to the world. He went to the community, the Microsoft community and beyond, and asked if teachers around the world would be willing to teach via Skype to kids who would come to this tent and learn remotely. And through this, adults in the refugee camp who wanted to be teachers could learn how to be teachers as well. So we're teaching teachers and teaching students through this singular device in a refugee camp. Isn't that amazing?
I mean, there's probably so many of those stories out there that just are not told, right? Or are just not heard. We can only consume so much. It's hard to find. So thank you for putting this together. I am super excited to read it. I know a lot of folks are excited to read it. I'm sure some partners are probably going to reach out and say, hey, can you talk to my customers about this? Or can you talk to my team about it? What's the next steps for you in this book? Are you going on a book tour? Are you going to be on a television show? Or where are you at?
I just don't know. I don't think there's a book tour in our future. We kind of wish that there was something like that. Becky, my co-author, lives in Seattle, and I'm here in New Jersey. So we actually never met in person once during the entire writing of the book. We did it all using Microsoft products. But it doesn't look like travel is in the very near future. Yeah. So we're just doing a lot of this Zoom stuff. We just want to make ourselves available. We want to tell people the book isn't about us. I mean, we have a couple of our own stories in the book, but the book is about the people we talk about in the book, and it's meant to be an inspiration. And so we want to keep putting the word out there to celebrate and elevate the educators who are featured in the book.
Well, I want to thank you so much for letting me pull you on camera to give a couple statements about this. I think you mentioned at BET that it was almost done. I think you had talked maybe between Istia of last year and BET and said that you were working on this. So it's awesome to see that journey and to actually have a product, right? There's a Kindle version if you want a digital product. There's a physical version. And I'm sure you're going to just constantly build on that. You just are such an advocate for education and whatever is new and cool going on and getting people excited. I know with remote learning, with all the stuff going on in the world, morale is low, right? We have a lot of low student morale, low teacher morale. So if this book gets people really excited by sharing what some of the people, others in the field are doing, then I think it's just going to make everyone feel really good, because we are, right? Everyone's planning to go back to school, and there's a lot of great tidbits in there to get them started. And even if they're not going back to a physical place, I'm sure there's stories in there. You just shared one of ways that remote learning can still be really innovative and therefore lift some morale and get everyone excited about the world we live in and the possibilities that are available to our students, not to practice after they graduate, but as you said, with change makers, practice immediately, which is really great. Any final things before we cut the recording for today?
Just dive in, take a look. I know that this is probably going to be seen by partners and not educators, or maybe not people in schools, but maybe this might just help to motivate some people to get teachers and educators reading this. Becky and I have created, we're so excited about this, through our publisher. It was their idea. We created book study questions that are already available for this. So if there's a group of people who kind of want to read this and challenge each other to try some of these things together, I think it's a great book to do as a group and to share and to take on things you probably wouldn't have taken on if you didn't read this. But let's try this story. Let's do that story. And so we've got book club questions already ready. They're digital. They're on the Dave Burgess Consulting website, which I don't know the website off the top of my head. But if you type in Dave Burgess Consulting, the book club questions are there. And I just think it's probably a really impactful way to do this book as a group, as a PLC, as a PLN, and just to explore it that way and have some accountability and have some friends to help you through some of the things that we suggest you try in the book.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day and good luck with the book. We'll all be reading it.
Thanks, Joe.